The college transfer portal gets all the buzz, but it's a high school transfer dominating the headlines this week. The number one player is teaming up with two other five stars in the state of Georgia. Steve Wiltfong tells us what this means for the Dogs. And speaking of, the Bulldogs of Mississippi State are up to number 20 in the 2024 team rankings. We'll explain how the Egg Bowl may be played in November, but the competition is heating up in June. And we've done our best to introduce you to the over 300 commitments from this month alone. But today, we're telling you about the fits for these new commits. That and more as the College Football Recruiting Show starts right now. Alongside Blair Angulo, I am Emily Proud. A reminder to submit your questions in the chat. We will answer them at the end of the show. The only way you can be a part of it is by subscribing to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Also, one more request. Please like this video so we know that you're watching. Blair, it's been a wild month already, but we're winding down. This is the final official visit weekend coming up, which means you get that final impression, right? This is crucial.
It's a huge weekend for a lot of programs. Everyone's trying to build momentum as we've already kicked off the summer season. And I think right now it's about making sure that your refrigerator is full with coffee. You've got some energy drinks on the table as well. This is closing time for a lot of coaches.
And then it will be the dead period, and we'll all take a big old snooze and rest up. But it's hard to imagine it could get any hotter for Florida. I mean, it's already pretty hot in the swamp, but the Gators are now the number 3 ranked class in the nation thanks to 7 pledges over the last few days. If that holds, this would be Florida's first time cracking the top 5 in over a decade. What is working right now for Billy Napier?
Emily, I'm taking option D, all of the above. Everything is coming up Gators. 16 commitments so far. That represents 6 different states and even an international prospect sprinkled in there from the country of Germany. They obviously have been doing a terrific job. They're pacing for a top 5 finish in average rating per commit, a metric that we love to use out and throw out there. So a great run lately for the Gators.
Meanwhile, Ohio State landed their 2025 quarterback as in-state 4-star Tavian St. Clair, announcing his commitment yesterday. He picked the Buckeyes over Bama, LSU, Michigan, many other programs. So how impactful is this particular get for Ryan Day as he looks to build out the 25 class?
It's huge to get your first choice quarterback early in the cycle. The impact on the roster could even be more resounding by getting Tavian St. Clair. The Buckeyes are amplifying their hit rate, Emily, at the position. They signed a former 5-star Devin Brown 2 cycles ago, All-American Bowl quarterback Lincoln Kienholz in 23. They've got a pledge from Aaron Noland in 24. So this is how Ryan Day stacks the chips in Columbus.
Stanford is the hottest team on the trail in terms of total commits in the month of June. We'll show you that figure a little bit later on. But the Cardinal adding to it with 4-star in-state wide receiver Emmett Mosley. Who did Troy Taylor just add here?
We love Emmett Mosley's ability to gain separation early in his routes. He's got good speed, good hands, terrific route awareness and body control. Mosley has shown the ability to run block too, which should make him a really capable wide receiver for Stanford early in his college career.
We'll have more on Stanford's recent additions in just a bit, but one more headline. The number 1 player in the class and Georgia quarterback commit is heading to the Peach State sooner than expected. Dylan Raiola will play his senior season at Buford High School. He'll play alongside fellow 5-star and dog targets KJ Bolden and Edric Houston. So to talk more about this, let's welcome in our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, for the Wiltfong Whip Around. And Steve, there are kind of 2 sides of this. First, what it means for Raiola, and then how it could impact the recruitments of both Bolden and Houston. So what's your read on how this move will affect both of those aspects?
Well, for Dylan Raiola, it's exciting because he's going to get a chance to play his full senior year, Emily. He was facing a potential 5-game suspension in Arizona because of transfer rules out there as he was making the move from Chandler High to Pinnacle High. And with him committing to Georgia, it's an opportunity for him to get to the Peach State early, play against a terrific high school schedule, and also be nearby Athens, where he can get over there and spend time with Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo. Conveniently, he was already there earlier this week. So big for Dylan Raiola, in my opinion. And then for recruiting purposes, obviously, I think Dylan Raiola is one of the most personable recruiters in the class, one of the guys that if you were to ask prospects who they want to play with in college, he would be on that short list. He already has a really good relationship with KJ Bolden. I like Georgia's position for KJ Bolden. He's coming off a fantastic official visit to Ohio State, a real needle moving one where my confidence in Georgia's position has gone down, but I still think I ultimately like the Bulldogs there, not sleeping on the Buckeyes. He was at Florida State this week, Alabama this weekend, and then Edric Houston. I think that Georgia's got work to do there, Emily. I really like my crystal ball forecast in favor of Ohio State for him. He's at Alabama this weekend with KJ as well. I think Georgia's got work to do there if they want to make a move with the coveted in-state defensive lineman.
Man, what a win for Kirby Smart to get a recruiter at that prolific high school all fall long. Yesterday, you entered a 5-star crystal ball for wide receiver Micah Hudson. Now, you have picked him to stay in the state of Texas, but not the Longhorns or the Aggies. You like the Red Raiders. What effect would reeling in a guy like this have on Joey McGuire and Texas Tech?
Well, we've talked about Micah Hudson and Texas Tech's position on several whip-arounds before. They've been one of the main players in this recruitment for a long time. Our colleague over at Horns 247, Jordan Scruggs, was talking way back last spring to keep an eye on Texas Tech. And our other colleague, Mike Roach, also logged a crystal ball in favor of Texas Tech here to land Micah Hudson. And I did a story on him earlier this spring where he just talked about the culture at Texas Tech, the connection he has with every single coach on staff from Joey McGuire on down. It's a place that he feels like he can be himself. They beat the Longhorns last year. They got an exciting style of offense. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the state committed in Will Hammond. It's a program that seems like they're on an upward trajectory, a lot of excitement around it, and they're one of the favorites for arguably the top prospect in the state.
Our colleague Jarrett Johnson of Inside the Red Raiders has a great story up right now about how Joey McGuire is doing things a little bit differently, and it's all kind of about kindness and how he's treating these recruits. So go check that out. It's been a bit,
Emily,
I guess. What?
Emily, speaking of some of those recruits, they're trending for Isaiah Collins, Peyton Morgan, Malika Square, Dante Carter. Those are all in-state DBs that Texas Tech trending on the crystal ball for as well.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be working what he's doing so far early on in his tenure there. It's been a bit since we've talked about Charles Lester, but the number 4 recruit in the country is inching closer and closer to his July decision date. You have a crystal ball in for the Seminoles at this point, so what's the latest with him?
Well, Florida State, the nation's number 17 ranked recruiting class right now. He's arguably their top target on the board right now, was back in Tallahassee this past weekend, and I've never felt better about where Florida State stands with Charles Lester than I do right now. I think they're the absolute clear team to beat. Georgia, Alabama, some of the other programs that he's looked at during his process. But Florida State, his relationship with the staff, the amount of time he's been on campus over there, I think they're clearly the one to beat. He's got a decision date for July, and I think it's just the build up now to a big time commitment for Mike Norvell and company.
All right. Meanwhile, right now, Notre Dame is the crystal ball favorite for 4-star offensive tackle Gerby Lambert. He visited earlier this month, but since then, he's taken trips to both Ohio State and Boston College. So where are you leaning in this apparent 3-team race?
Yeah, our guy Tom Lloyd put that Notre Dame pick in back in November, and the Irish are certainly at the top of the list here for Gerby Lambert, who took his official visit the first weekend of June, still continues to have regular dialogue with the Irish staff. He wants to be an engineering major. I think he likes the small class size at Notre Dame, certainly the tradition on the football field and their offensive line pedigree. I think they got some serious competition here. Boston College, the opportunity to stay close to home. They have a new engineering program there at the school. Coach Halfley and company have done a really good job of building a rapport with him. And then Ohio State, don't sleep on the Buckeyes here. They had them on campus this past weekend, and all the returns are strong from what I'm hearing there. Justin Fry has a lot of connections to the area with his time at Boston College. Same goes with head football coach Ryan Day. I think that those guys have the trust of the coaching staff over there at Catholic Memorial High in West Roxbury, Massachusetts. And this has become a real tight recruitment here down the stretch. Notre Dame certainly has a chance to add him to a class that ranks number 5 nationally, but Ohio State sitting there at number 4. He's one of their top overall targets, and then it would be a monster pickup for Boston College. I could still see this one going a couple different ways.
Don't worry, Steve. We never sleep on Ohio State. Before we look at a few big visit weekends on the horizon, we have to discuss what just happened in the Swamp. Since the weekend, the Gators have now received 7 commitments in the 2024 class, highlighted by the 5-star edge in Jamonta Waller. How can Billy Napier continue to build on this hot streak?
Well, I think that when you look at some of the targets that they're in on moving forward, they're still swinging at Jeremiah Smith. And when I spent some time with Jeremiah Smith at the Elite 11 finals / overtime OT7 finals in Los Angeles this past week, I took away that I think it's going to be extremely tough to pull him away from Ohio State. He said his school is going to have to prove that they can develop him into a first-round draft pick. And when I asked him which school after Ohio State he thought could do that for him, he said it was the University of Florida. LJ McCray is a major defensive line target for the Gators moving forward out of Daytona Beach, Florida, Mainland High. He was just on his official visit to Georgia. I think this could be shaping up to be a Florida-Georgia battle. You certainly still have Miami and Florida State and Auburn in the mix. But Florida, you look at this recent run of recruiting wins that they've had, and they're beating powerhouse programs. They're beating programs that are competing for national championships. That's where they want to be. And LJ McCray and Texas A&M commit Dalen Evans, those are 2 more major targets on the defensive line. That is a position room that they're going to continue to attack until they get to a championship level. And LJ McCray and Dalen Evans are 2 more that they're absolutely in the thick of it moving forward as they try and add on to a class that currently ranks number 3 nationally.
Some interesting wins for Billy Napier, exactly what Florida wanted to do in switching to him as the head coach. Still waiting for results on the field, but this will certainly help the recruiting department. Well, sticking in the soon-to-be extinct SEC East, Knoxville is the place to be this weekend. Tennessee hosting 3 5-star prospects, Elijah Rushing, Jordan Ross, and Mike Matthews. The Vols now have a top 10 class, but how do you feel about their chances to add to it after this weekend?
Yeah, looking to finish in the top 10 for a second straight cycle, Emily. Mike Matthews is one we've had Tennessee as a team to watch on Whip Around for a while. Certainly Clemson, USC have given him a lot to think about on recent official visits. He was just at USC this past weekend for what was a massive recruiting weekend for Lincoln Riley and company. And he was at Clemson the first weekend of the month. Georgia's been trying to climb up in this race as well, but Tennessee well positioned. I think they're at or near the top. I think this will be his 3rd time on campus this calendar year. He was there for the win over Alabama. His family likes it. He loves the offense. And so I think Tennessee's in a good spot already coming into the visit for Elijah Rushing. We like Oregon right now on Whip Around. But Tennessee's a program that I think could make a move with a really strong visit this weekend. And then Jordan Ross is the 5-star edge from Birmingham, Alabama. When he visited Georgia a couple weekends ago, we talked about on the show that we thought the Bulldogs made a major move. And I do think that in the moment of that visit that Georgia was very exciting. But I think since the dust has settled and talking to him after that Georgia visit a couple days, he told me that Tennessee was the one to beat. So I know Florida is still very much in it. He was at Texas this past weekend, but Tennessee's been one of his favorites his entire process. And I think that they are also in great position going into this recruiting weekend. They had Williams Nwaneri on campus last weekend, the 5-star defensive lineman from Kansas City. So if they can add Matthews, Jordan Ross, and Nwaneri, and then Elijah Rushing would just be a bonus. But those 3 5-stars I just mentioned, that would be as strong a close as any program in the country to the 2024 cycle.
See what happens there. We got one more East team to hit on, and that's South Carolina. Shane Beamer will get his shot at a 5-star edge in Dylan Stewart this weekend. They're also hosting top targets and 4-star athletes Jonathan Paler and Daniel Hill. So what's the latest headed into this important weekend?
Yeah, so Dylan Stewart's coming off his official visit to Ohio State and got to spend some time with Chase Young on campus. Larry Johnson is kind of a legendary figure, talking to people that spent time with Dylan Stewart and his family. His mom really likes Larry Johnson. That's a place that they feel Dylan could develop into the best version of himself. But South Carolina and Miami are two programs that I just refuse to sleep on in this recruitment. We pegged Miami as the team to watch or the team to beat coming out of his official to Miami 2 weekends ago. I think Ohio State has firmly given them a lot to think about, but South Carolina, they've been in this one for a long time, and they're trying to do what they did with Nicholas Harbor last cycle, although I think Dylan Stewart is someone that's going to come off the board much earlier than Nicholas Harbor, but South Carolina, they've done a great job recruiting Dylan Stewart throughout his process. He's pointed to Sterling Lucas and his pedigree and certainly likes the trajectory of the program. Jonathan Paler is one that I could certainly see ending up at South Carolina. They've done a fantastic job recruiting him to date. Coach Justin Stepp leading the charge there. He was just at NC State this past weekend. He's been to the in-state program a ton over the course of his recruitment. Maryland and North Carolina, some other contenders, but South Carolina has prioritized them early. They're going to have a great shot to land him. And then Daniel Hill is a 6'1", 220-pound, ferocious type running back. I think he's got all SEC written all over him on the next level wherever he decides. And he's coming off another visit to Alabama this past weekend. There's a lot of buzz about the Crimson Tide right now for Daniel Hill, who was trending South Carolina for much of his process. So South Carolina serve. We'll see what they do with it this weekend. He's a guy that they absolutely covet at a big position and need for them as they get this program back on track.
All right. Thank you, Steve. You can read more of his work on 247sports.com. And for more exclusive information, become a VIP member today. We are actually running a sale right now. You get 50% off until June 29th or $1 for your first month. And guys, so I had to check. And according to the calculator on my phone, 20% of you watching have hit that like button. That is very low. Let's go ahead and fix that. If you have not already, hit the like button, not the heart, the thumbs up button, and we will get those numbers up. Meanwhile, Starkville is quickly becoming Starville. The Bulldogs are now 20th in the team rankings and 6th in a loaded SEC. This is thanks to some recent in-state wins. So that's where we head next, to the state of Mississippi, because one Steve is not enough on this show. So let's go ahead, add in another to the mix here, and welcome in the publisher of Gene's Page, covering Mississippi State. It's Steve Robertson. Steve, let's start here. The Bulldogs adding 2 in-state commitments earlier this week. You've got the 4-star wide receiver J.J. Harrell and 4-star athlete Braylon Burnside. How important was adding those 2 talents to this class?
Well, it was very important to get them both, but they actually got 3 4-star commitments earlier this week. P.J. Woodland from Oak Grove also joining in. But Burnside and Harrell have kind of become, I guess, kind of Batman and Robin in the class when it comes to wide receivers. And Chad Bumpus, a former Mississippi State great, is now the wide receiver coach in Starkville, and he has really bonded well with these guys. And as a result, they're headed to Starkville. And the Bulldog fans are extremely, extremely excited about getting both of these guys in, because wide receiver recruiting's been a bit of a moving target for Mississippi State in recent years. And, of course, air raid comes in, and people wonder, will there be a step back in wide receiver recruiting? And Chad Bumpus is here to say no.
Steve, this is Zach Arnett's first full recruiting cycle since taking over after the passing of Mike Leach. Does his recruiting strategy differ from what we saw from Leach? And if so, how is he different?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the very first things that Coach Arnett said when he took over is we're going to prioritize in-state recruiting. And you look at the NFL players per capita by state, Mississippi is traditionally 1 or 2, right there with Louisiana. And so there's a lot of diamonds in the rough in this state, a lot of developmental guys that really kind of thrive and find their peak on the college level. And Zach went out and hired some coaches that have a lot of ties to the state of Mississippi, brings David Turner back, That's a guy that's been here now 3 times here at Mississippi State, recruited Chris Jones, Fletcher Cox, and Jeffrey Simmons to Mississippi State. He knows what it takes to get guys to be Bulldogs. And Arnett is committed to this state and really to the border states. And that's where you see all of Mississippi State's 13 commitments right now, all from the state of Mississippi or a border state. And so not only is it's a creative hashtag, it's really a philosophy of Mississippi State to really start and end with in-state recruiting.
Yeah, along those lines, though, there is another SEC school in state that is battling for some of those similar prospects. And in my mind, there's really nothing better than when the Egg Bowl rivalry spills onto the recruiting trail. We're, of course, seeing that once again in this cycle. So in your eyes, I mean, how important is it for Zach Arnett to win those in-state battles against Ole Miss?
Well, the one thing is there's a lot of talent in state this year. So I'm sure on signing day, both schools will claim victory in state. But I think both of them have a chance to really address their needs with in-state recruiting and then kind of supplement outside of the state where the in-state crop is somewhat deficient. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of head-to-head battles, and you mentioned that 50% off promo. If you're a Mississippi State or an Ole Miss fan, you take advantage of that. This is one of those years you've been looking forward to. The last few years have kind of been, kind of humdrum. State and Ole Miss have kind of prioritized different targets, but this year, with the in-state crop being so bountiful, there's going to be a ton of in-state battles all the way up to National Signing Day, and we can't wait to cover it.
Looking at the current class of commitments, 13 of them, and only 2 are on the defensive side of the ball, Steve. It seems like the emphasis has been on the offensive side. Do you see that shifting here as we progress towards early signing day in December?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, that's really where I think this in-state crop is probably the deepest, is on the defensive side of the football. It's a really, really good year on the defensive line. And of course, State already has Terrence Hibbler committed, who I surmise is probably the best interior guy in the state this year for defensive line. But now you've got some other guys out there, of course, some defensive backs and safeties and certainly linebackers within this state. Fred Clark is a guy that's already committed to Mississippi State. We like him an awful lot. I think he has the potential to be a Mike linebacker in this scheme. But Zach Arnett is a defensive guy at heart. He wants to be physical. He wants to inflict pain whenever he can. So, yeah, you're going to see a lot of defensive players added to this class over the course of the next few weeks. And one of the names that I think is important to remember, Tyler Woodard was a Bulldog commitment 2 years ago, ultimately went to junior college. He has reemerged now and is a priority target for this class. It's a guy that Darcel McBath, the corners coach at State, has been on now for a handful of years. And so hopefully that relationship plays some dividends for the Bulldogs moving forward.
Along those lines, it is only June, so there's a lot of time left in this cycle. You mentioned how excited you guys are to cover this recruiting cycle because it has been so bountiful in the state of Mississippi. But overall, I mean, who are maybe a few more guys trending toward commitment to Mississippi State?
Yeah, that's a good question. William Eccles, an offensive lineman out of Houston, Mississippi, and some believe he is the best offensive line prospect in this state. He is a massive tackle prospect, believed to be an early lean to State. Ole Miss gets involved with him, kind of muddies the water a little bit. It's been 50-50 much of the way. It does like State may be finally kind of neck out in front there. We'll see how things go, but that's a pretty big name to kind of remember, literally and figuratively. And then, of course, Conan Daniels is a guy that's committed to Florida. I think a lot of people think that one is over. It absolutely isn't over. Mississippi State still prioritizing him as their running back in this class. We'll see if being 20 minutes from campus makes a difference in the long run. He is committed to Florida, but I won't be the least bit surprised if he takes a visit to Mississippi State before the process is over.
Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. A reminder, he told you all about it. Again, 50% off for that VIP promotion. You're going to want to have it if you are a Mississippi State fan. Be sure to check out Gene's page for all things Bulldogs. They're getting you ready to go for the season right now. They have this cool countdown. It's a 100-day Bulldog countdown. Today is number 72, so I think you can guess that they are highlighting an offensive lineman. Be sure to go check that out. I don't know if we've made this known enough on the show already, but it has been a busy June. In total, over 300 players have committed in this month alone. The ACC leads the way with 80 total pledges. The Pac-12, you see them highlighted there, they're third in the conference race, but get this. New head coach Troy Taylor has Stanford with 20 of those 64 Pac-12 June commitments. That is 32%. I didn't need my calculator for that because it's right on the screen. It's already been wild, and we still have over a week left in this month.
And now it's time for Fits for Big Commits.
That is right. We have told you who they are and where they're going, but I need to know, is it a good match? So today, Blair is breaking down fits for big commits in the Pac-12. Let's start with the aforementioned Cardinal. Big win in landing four-star quarterback Elijah Brown. He now becomes the face of the 2024 class and comes in with loads of expectations. So how do you like the fit for this big commit?
I love the fit, Emily. We likely won't see a lot of heavy set 3 tight end formations at Stanford anymore. Troy Taylor is now in charge. Elijah Brown is one of those serene and cerebral quarterbacks in this 2024 class. He'll be a really good fit. I think they like to do some air raid stuff, some zone read stuff, and he's got the ability to do a little bit of everything. He's got a terrific arm. He's got a great feel for those downfield throws, and for a player that's going to have to make a lot of decisions and have a lot of that responsibility on his shoulders, I think Elijah Brown is that perfect quarterback to take Stanford to the next level as they change offensive schemes.
Let's go south to USC. The Trojans landing one of the top offensive linemen in the 2024 class in Jason Zandamela, originally from Mozambique, but he plays his high school ball a little bit closer to California. Still far, though, Clearwater High in Florida. So USC with a Sunshine State snag. How do you like the fit for this big commit?
This is a terrific fit. I think he's going to be a pillar up front for USC. I think they like him at center. He's got the positional versatility to do a lot of different things up front. He can be a cornerstone, though, of a more physical and bruising brand of football, which the Trojans are trying to prepare for as they move over to the Big Ten in time for the 2024 season. Center, of course, is a huge component of what you want to do up front, especially along the offensive line. So I think Zandamela gives USC a huge win, a huge cross-country victory on a recruiting front, but also I think stylistically is a terrific fit for the Trojans.
Arizona's 2024 class currently sits inside the top 50 with 14 commits, the latest addition being 3-star athlete Landon Bell. So how do you like the fit for this big commit?
Another really good fit. I think this is a player who carries a lot of different things in his tool belt. He can play some safety. He can play some wide receiver. I've actually seen him line up at some linebacker in the high school ranks. But I think from a positional fit standpoint, I think receiver is going to be where he wants to make his bread and butter down in Tucson. They've done a terrific job of developing wide receivers. We saw Dorian Singer and what he was able to do within the Pac-12 conference last year, has since transferred to USC as a big name guy in the portal. You have T-Mac there leading the charge in Tucson as well. So I think Landon Bell, with his length, his catch radius, and his hand-eye coordination, can give Jedd Fisch a nice weapon there offensively. Recently decommitted from Washington, so a nice win to be able to flip Landon Bell there from the Las Vegas area.
Let's fast forward a cycle to 2025 and Kenny Dillingham landing a quarterback in Michael Tolafasan. He is a top 20 signal caller. Turned down offers from some big-time programs like Florida State, Georgia, Miami, Oregon. How do you like the fit for this big commit?
Well, Emily, they nicknamed him Butter, and I don't think Butter does a lot of really good things in the high heat, but I think he's going to be super smooth for Kenny Dillingham. I think he's going to be a terrific fit for what they like to do offensively. You think back to the quarterbacks that Dillingham had at Oregon with Bo Nix and the way he resurrected his career. They had, he had a lot of success at Florida State as well with Jordan Travis. Quarterback position is huge and a huge component for what the Sun Devils hope to do, and they missed out on some guys in this 2024 class. Remember, Isaac Wilson and Elijah Brown were both high on ASU before they committed to Utah and Stanford respectively. They were also in on some in-state prospects. Dylan Raiola went to Georgia. Damon Williams went to Ole Miss. Luke Moga went to Oregon. So for him to pivot to Butter Tollefson, I think is a huge win and a really, really good stylistic fit there for the Sun Devils as well.
Butter. That is a fantastic nickname. I needed a little drum kit after you said, might not do so well in the heat. Butter is fantastic all the time. Okay, so that's the Pac-12. We'll run through the rest of the Power 5 in the weeks ahead, so stay tuned for that. You hear that sound, you know what it means. Just because there is no college football recruiting show over the weekend does not mean that the recruiting world stops. So it is time to mark your calendar. We are Commit HQ. Tune in to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel on Saturday to see 4-star athlete Bronte Johnson make his commitment live. He is picking at 10 a.m. Eastern, so bring your coffee. The Fort Wayne, Indiana native is deciding between Notre Dame, Purdue, and Tennessee. Blair, where are you leaning?
I'm rolling with our insiders Steve Wiltfong and Tom Loy on this one. They have their crystal balls on the Irish. Emily, we like to say follow the visits. Notre Dame's the only official that Bronte has taken this month, so you have to really like the Irish for the in-state star.
We have another live commitment, but it will be on this very show on Monday. 4-star wide receiver Ryan Pelham announcing his decision. He's narrowed it down to just 2, Oregon and USC. Who do you like?
I went straight to the source on this one. That would be Greg Biggins, your favorite recruiting analyst's favorite recruiting analyst. He said that the big thing to watch here this weekend is whether Ryan Pelham makes it to Eugene Prison. I made you laugh. That was a good one.
That's great.
He will be taking it official to Eugene this weekend. If he makes it up there, I think the Ducks are in the dogfight here with USC. Give me the Trojans for the local star.
I'm so jealous. You got to hang out with my favorite recruiting analyst last week. One more headline here. The Under Armour Future 50 taking place Friday and Saturday at IMG Academy. This event will feature some of the nation's top prospects in the 2025 class. 24/7 Sports, that's us. We'll have a full team of analysts in attendance, so stay locked in for the latest. But Blair, who's a prospect that you think can make some noise?
Emily, I'm going to be a bit of a homer here. Jordan Davison, the running back from Mater Dei. I love his game. He runs with power. He runs with tenacity. He's got a tremendous burst once he reaches the second line of defense. I want to see him and what he does at Future 50. And then you see Douglas Utu there, one of the best offensive tackles in the country, regardless of class, a big-time top 25, 2025 prospect in the class. We remember Zachariah Branch and what he was able to do at the Future 50 last year. From Bishop Gorman, I think Douglas Utu can make similar noise once he gets down to Florida this weekend.
All right, this segment also is a bit of a preview for what we'll be talking about on Monday's show, so be sure you are tuning in then. It is time to answer some of your viewer questions, and we got a lot of questions today, so a lot to sort through here, but we got the Gator fans watching, of course. They were just chomping at the bit to watch this show. I mean, they're always chomping, but let's go. DeAndre G, do you think Florida will finish in the top 5 of the rankings when it's all said and done? I think you've been asked this question before, but I'm also just going to go ahead and assume that answer has ebbed and flowed a little bit and has changed. So what's your answer now?
This is a repeat question. We've been asked if they're going to finish in the top 10. We've been asked if they're going to finish in the top 5. Right now, they are trending to finish in the top 5. I think the key for Billy Napier is to show that they're going to make strides on the football field, right? They struggled a bit in the spring game. It wasn't that electrifying or, I think, entertaining. But I think the brand of football that they want to play is all about business. It's not about flash. It's not about, I think being an attractive. They just want to win games. That's what he was able to do in his previous stop. That's what they are doing on the recruiting trail, and they're going to have to do it on the field this season, similar to what we saw from Tennessee last year. We need to see that same progression, that same trajectory from the Gators to be able to finish top 5. But the potential is all there. The foundation is there right now. They've been setting some of those big building blocks for Billy Napier to continue to recruit at a high level. And the average per commit, another stat that our guy Steve Wiltfong likes to throw out, I think you really have to like Florida right now.
Yes, very high there. I think that's an important stat because you look at a team like Alabama, who right now is way far down in the rankings, but their average per commit is, of course, very high. I do want to point out our director of research, Ryan McGrady, who's always just dropping great nuggets in the chat. Another reason that you should be subscribed to the channel so you can see this information that is wonderful. He pulled this up. The nickname Butter comes from his mom, says when he was a baby, like 1 or 2 years old. It was part of a lullaby that she used to sing. Here, I'm assuming that, maybe he plays. He's so smooth, just like butter, but apparently it's something that's been in his family for quite some time. So another reason to be a part of the chat and to subscribe to the channel. You get to learn some interesting things like that. Our next question comes from Hannah G, asking, how does Christian Clark fit into the Texas backfield, having just committed today?
A huge win for them. He was supposed to visit Georgia this coming weekend. He will not be visiting Georgia anymore. He took trips to Florida State and Oregon. USC was involved. Alabama was involved. I mean, this is a player who a lot of the blue bloods nationally wanted in their recruiting class. And for Texas to get him, I think it's significant because we've already seen what they're able to do at running back. They got one of the best ones last year. They're in it for one of the best ones this year in Jared Gibson. But Christian Clark gives them a different dimension, a different element to that offense. He's more of a bruiser, more of a physical downhill guy that can do some stuff in between the tackles. He's really comfortable in that zone read concept, and I think he's going to be one of those players that you go in there in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter when the defense is tired, and he can just kind of drive through defenders. And when you think about Texas moving over to the SEC, these are the types of offensive playmakers that they're going to need. So I love this fit. Bijan Robertson comes from the state of Arizona. Christian Clark is hoping to be the big follower to what Bijan was able to do as a Grand Canyon State player to go and to go to Austin and do some big things.
Yeah, they have had success finding running backs in that state before, but man, those are some big shoes to fill. We'll see the path that he blazes on his own. HM33 asks, I feel like when prospects transfer a lot in high school, it throws up red flags. Are you worried about that with Dylan Raiola?
I am not, because I believe his transfers have been circumstantial, right? This is a player who's originally from the state of Arizona. He moved out to Texas during that COVID year, right? When football was, in a way, kind of in limbo for a lot of prospects. So he goes out to Texas, goes back to Arizona. Family is building a couple homes there in the Phoenix area. Had to make a move this offseason heading into his senior year. And as Steve detailed in the whip around earlier on the show, he was facing that 5-game suspension, right? He had the appeal. He was going through that process right now. It didn't look likely that he would be getting a hardship waiver to be immediately eligible. So when you're a senior, when you're committed to Georgia, when all you want to do is play football and you're facing basically a half of your season being gone and up in smoke, I think the decision was a little easier. And honestly, I think this is a huge thing for Georgia. When you think about the impact that this could have on recruiting, Dylan Raiola would have had to hop on those red-eye flights out of Sky Harbor there in Phoenix to make it to some of those noon or 3 o'clock kickoffs in Athens. Now he's going to be able to, wake up, have some breakfast, make the drive over and catch some games and recruit other players. I think this is huge, not only for him to be able to start in a way integrating himself to that SEC environment, but also for Georgia to get a guy that's going to be able to recruit for them really heavily.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out that 5-game suspension is essentially half of a high school season. The seasons are not quite as long as what we see in college football and the NFL. So that would be a big chunk. In your senior year, this is your final year to play. But yeah, I pointed that out in the interview with Steve Wiltfong, is just how big a win it is for Kirby Smart to have that recruiter at a prolific high school in that area. But of course, it makes things a lot easier for Dylan Raiola too. He can grab a stack of pancakes or something before going and checking out. I'm sure College Game Day will be down there very often. It'll be happening in Athens this upcoming season. Russell S. asking, how do you feel about Clemson's recruiting on the offensive line?
Well, there's been some losses, Emily. They've been, in a way, I think, underwhelming. But there are some players that are still up for grabs for them, and they are making their push. As we know, Clemson moves at a different pace when it comes to recruiting. They offer a little bit later. They don't offer as many players either. I think they identify them on a case-by-case basis, and they don't just throw out a bunch of offers and hope that, some guys commit first. Casey Poe's one to watch. Williams Satterwhite is another one to watch. And I don't think they're going to push the panic button. I think they're going to be able to go in and try to get some developmental pieces. And then we detailed recently on the show, right, that David Sanders, the #1 prospect in the 2025 class, became the first player in that class to get an offer from Clemson. So, maybe they've been shifting their focus and prioritizing him as the number one player that they hope to get. So if they miss on some offensive linemen, I would anticipate that Clemson will go all in on getting David Sanders and making him a priority for 25.
Certainly. If you go and look at their profile right now, no offensive linemen committed at the moment. But again, it is June, it's early, and they are in play for a lot of guys. All right, that's it for our show. Thank you guys for sending in your comments. And another reminder to subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. That's the only way you can ask us questions, the only way we see them. Also, on the way out, go ahead, smash that like button. For Blair Angulo, I'm Emily Proud, and this is the College Football Recruiting Show.